This is David Dubal, and I am very happy to be speaking to my guest, Marthanne Verbit. Marthanne is one of the great pianists who was born in Georgia.
Georgia.
Now, not Georgia in the now called Soviet Union, but in the United States. How does a marvelous pianist come from Georgia? I always think they're always born on West End Avenue.
Mentally, perhaps, we're born on West End Avenue. I grew up in a small town in Georgia, a town called Fitzgerald, which isn't even on some maps of Georgia. A town of about 10,000, very charming, and my family was filled with musicians. We had a lot of pianos in our house by some strange coincidence.
A house with a lot of pianos?
My grandmother had a piano. This is too revealing. My grandmother had a piano. She lived with us in her bedroom, a nice Baldwin. And my father played the piano, and his was downstairs in the parlor. And then there was an upright somewhere in the back of the house. I have two brothers, and we all, of course, took piano lessons. I started very early. And my mother made us practice every morning. 6 o'clock in the morning, we were up. We each practiced an hour before school. We didn't have as many distractions in South rural Georgia as you do on West End Avenue.
I understand that.
That's the simple answer.
But it's not so simple because there were pianos in every room, so it was, so to speak, you were born to that instrument. And knowing you somewhat, I think you love that instrument, the piano. You love its literature, you love what it can do, and you do so much in music. You know, you play concerts of American music, you play all Scriabin recitals, you have recorded important segments of forgotten literature or literature that should be on record, and we're going to be talking all about Marthanne Verbit and what she does in and for music, because I think it's important for you to do things for music. You are, just knowing you as long as I have, a servant to music. You're not someone that is a huge ego that says, listen to me, listen to me. You always say, listen to the music.
I hadn't thought of that, and I like to hear you say that, because I think that music is, this sounds so profound, but it is bigger than we are, and I'm interested in the composers. I think you're that way too.
I sure am. I'm just crazy about the music, the literature, the composers.
Well, I must say I've played a lot of off-the-wall things, but my recitals this season touring begin with, don't faint, the Beethoven Moonlight Sonata.
Oh God, it's a wonderful piece. You know,
it's
getting. Andre Watt said to me that.
Cycle.
He's playing it in his concerts, and he finds out that it's the first time many people have ever heard it because it was so hackneyed that nobody dared play it. Now everyone is starting to play it again.
I didn't know that. I've always liked that piece, and I like to begin with moody things. Now you're a real performer, and you know what it's like the first 5 or 10 minutes on stage. And I simply cannot start the way I know Andre Watts does with a set of Scarlatti sonatas. I'm too nervous. And I like to start with something that gets me, I don't know, helps me find my center, and I get a little calmer about. And certainly the Moonlight Sonata, everything has to be perfect in it. But it's slow. I'd start with the Rock of Ages if I could. A very slow version of it.
So, everyone has to find out how they can approach the public, and that's
you have to know yourself to do this thing. I think you have to be, what's the phrase? I just used it on you, bien dans sa peau.
Sounds very good.
Comfortable in your own skin.
Yes.
Yeah, and not everybody is. But I think that performers have to be.
Because it's really very frightening out there, and all of a sudden your hands can shake. So you'd like to get
yes.
you'd like to get right into the Moonlight Sonata, which is one of the most, forgetting the title, one of the most
forget it.
Beautiful laments in music. That sorrowful, wonderful piece. But of course, you do have to play the second and third movement. And
Amen.
by that time, you're ready.
Yes.
Well, you are a fantastic programmer, Marthanne Verbit.
Thank you. Coming from you, I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for the compliment, too. In one of your recitals, I see here an American composer's recital, which is fantastic. The Star-Spangled Banner begins in the Joseph Hoffman arrangement.
Yes.
It's followed by the improvisation by McDowell and Witch's Dance, what a fabulous piece.
That's
Nobody knows it anymore.
It's one of his best pieces, I think.
Yeah. And then you play the Griffiths White Peacock, and then a Leo Ornstein piece. And we're going to get to talking about Ornstein later. Now, yesterday at the Juilliard School, you played a premiere of a piece called Crystal Stairs by a wonderful man and a superb composer, Joseph Fenimore. Tell me about Crystal Stairs, because it is a fantastic score.
Thank you. I'm living it right now, it seems. Joseph wrote, I commissioned him to write a piece for me that would be a different something on my programs. I tend to play overlong, somber things often. For instance, the Shostakovich Second Sonata is not exactly something that makes you want to kick up your heels and dance. And I needed something on my programs that would bring some light moments. And I must admit, I loved the music of his that I had heard. So I commissioned him to write a piece for me, and I asked him to make it a one-movement piece, preferably 10 minutes, not more than 15 minutes. And he came up with a piece called Crystal Stairs. I premiered the solo version in 1983 in New York, and then other places, Washington and Boston. It's a piece that looks back to the Busby-Berkeley era.
Oh, you really have to hear this piece to believe it. It is absolutely tremendous. The piano part is vibrant, and well, can we say it, because I think you have to see it, so it's okay to say it.
Yeah.
Right in the middle, there's a little moment of Marthanne Verbit doing a tap dance, and done with such flair. Well, the piece generates such an excitement. It's like a great Hollywood concerto, but written with such craft by Fenimore.
Well, he's a fabulous pianist, don't you? I mean, only a fabulous pianist could write a piece that fits
is
the
it true
keyboard that well.
Both you and Fenimore once studied with the wonderful teacher Martin Cannon?
Yes, we both have studied with Martin Cannon.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
So it's an interesting thing then to work with a
a
composer who is a good pianist.
Yes, and I found that in working with Fenimore and then another composer who wrote something for me, John Dierks, and in playing the music of Ornstein, who is still living, that it's after you've done all of your studying with sort of regular piano teachers, to work with a composer is a whole nother learning process, because they make you so much more aware of where the harmonies are going. This sounds a little naive, doesn't it? But it's, I mean, just having it pointed out to you that I want to hear that third go to the next third. From the creator, it's a wonderful experience for a performer. Yeah, I've learned a lot working with them. Marthanne Verbit is my guest, and we are going to hear her in a variety of works, always unusual, and we're going to begin with two extraordinary late pieces by Scriabin. One of her abiding interests is the music of the Russian mystical impressionist master Alexander Scriabin. Tell me, how did you begin this, really an affair with him? That's right, it's been a long love affair. When I was an undergraduate at Hollins College in Roanoke, Virginia, I had never heard of Alexander Scriabin. I came from Georgia, as we said, and we didn't know about those things down there. Those exotic Russian composers. I went off to college when I was 16 years old, and the composer in residence there introduced me to Scriabin, and I loved it right away, and didn't really learn the music then, because in those days I had to play everything else. Finished college, finished graduate school, and then I felt free to do what I wanted to. when I decided to give my New York debut, I had learned enough Scriabin, and I just decided to go ahead and give an all Scriabin recital,
And
which was really gutsy in those days.
oh,
because
yes.
it was the year actually before his centenary year, and I suppose for a debut recital you're supposed to start with Beethoven and end with Bartok, or
Well, I don't
be a
see
little
you,
more standard.
Yes, I don't see
But-
you as a standard artist. Indeed, you always must do something original. And what a program you did! We're going to be hearing from a recording that was taken from your Wigmore Hall performance of these sonatas, right?
It's very
and
old.
It's an old recording, the last one you have, but it shows what adventurousness you had in this debut recital. Sonata number 1, then the sonata number 8, which
For the
must
first
be
half.
the most incredibly difficult piece to memorize.
And I played it without the score.
Mm.
I've had a terrific headache, I remember, in New York when I played it. I've in the middle of it, this sort of searing pain went through my head.
Really?
And
Scriabin would have been proud of you.
and I remember going off stage, and because it really is a lot to memorize.
Oh.
And it was the newest thing on the program. Of course, in those days I was young and blissfully free of lots of experience, and I just slammed away and played it. But I walked off stage pulling hairpins out of my head. Later I found out from a friend of mine that Scriabin saw green when he was in that tonality of A, and that the searing pain was something that was absolutely right. I've never had that feeling since. I'm not. It's so long ago that I've sort of forgotten the spiritual quality of it. I'm sure it was.
Well, that's why I said Scriabin would be proud of you.
Yeah.
He would have understood it. He was some character. We will listen to Marthanne Verbit performing the Garlands and
Yes.
the Somber Dark Flames, 2 late pieces, dances he calls them, from 1914, very late in his life. Let's hear Marthanne Verbit in Scriabin. Live performance of Garlands and Dark Flame in a Wigmore Hall performance by Marthanne Verbit. So that was live. We're going to be back right after this message to talk more about the career of my guest, Marthanne Verbit. This is David Dubal, and Marthanne Verbit is a pianist of unusual skill and variety in the music she plays. We were talking about a first performance that she's been doing of Crystal Stairs by Joseph Fenimore, an important American composer. She's very interested in Scriabin, and she's also interested in Liszt. Liszt's birthday is coming up, and probably you're planning something. Yes, you see the nod comes.
Aren't we all?
Yes, I think he's the father of the piano career. And
he invented the solo recital, some say.
Yes, he did. In 1839, he said the sonata, the concert is me.
C'est moi.
Yeah, c'est moi. Liszt was an awesome character. Why do I bring him up? Well, because in a minute we're going to be hearing one of the transcriptions that you play. Well, when did you first come to Liszt? He had entered Georgia,
yes.
USA, hadn't he?
Absolutely. I can't remember the first Liszt piece I played, but I have played a lot of them. Maybe I played the Liebesstraum. That would have gone over big in the South.
Sure, and the title, is perfection itself. Yeah,
that's right. A pretty Southern girl playing. Anyway.
You must have made a great hit in Georgia, right?
Oh, yes. I like the darker pieces of Liszt, though.
Yes,
the Funerei. Coming up, my recitals after Christmas will be, I'll have, just like every pianist in the world, I'll have a Liszt group on, which will include the Funerei and the, the Etude Nomenreigen, which isn't played too much. I suppose this year it will be. The 10th Rhapsody, and one of my most favorite pieces, the Sonnet 104 of Petrarch. So, but I often begin my programs with Liszt.
And which Liszt?
Well,
Gubra Gondola?
One program in New York in 1981. I started the program with the Lugubrious Gondola. The second one, I had learned the first one, thinking I would start with that, and then I changed my mind, began with the second one, and then followed that with the Miserere, which we're going to hear. On another program in New York in 83, I began with the late Liszt piece to the memory of, excuse my accent, Petofi. You can do that better.
No, I can't.
It has
he was
those
a Hungarian.
two little dots over the
So you are an exponent of the late piano pieces. You like those works.
I like them. I like to begin programs with them, because a lot of the music that I play comes after Liszt, and I think he influenced it. I think that it's easy, and certainly it's been done, perhaps to death, people writing and talking about what Liszt did in his late pieces. But I always pair the late pieces with some of the middle, more flamboyant works, because...
You remember the 10th Rhapsody played by Rubinstein?
No.
Oh, he was wonderful in the 10th Rhapsody. Those glissandi were so wonderful.
Oh, aren't they fun, those glisses?
Oh,
yes,
well,
they have to be done very elegantly, or it can be...
vulgar.
Yes, vulgar.
If it's not elegant, it's vulgar. Well,
it's true of a lot of things.
Marthanne, we're going to hear a segment of Liszt which was out of fashion until recently, and now that we are exploring again the literature in depth, Liszt's transcriptions are back in. Tell us about the Miserere from Trovatore, which is so effectively transcribed by Liszt.
Well, first of all, let's say this is a live performance. I think we pianists, since everyone is so perfect in the recording studio, let me quickly add that this was live in New York City, right at the beginning of a program, too. This piece, it is one in which Liszt, and if you'll help me with this, it'll move it along more quickly, in which Liszt just chooses one scene from the opera and focuses on it. And
like he did with the Rigoletto Quartet in his Rigoletto paraphrase. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's very successful to do it with, you hear the bells tolling and what's her name? I've forgotten it now. I want to say Isadora.
Well,
The,
Isadora Duncan would have liked it
help
and would have
me.
danced to it, but I can't help you this moment.
And Hoo is in the tower,
Uh-huh.
trapped, and he sings this beautiful aria, and she's down in the street crying for him.
Well, Liszt loved
I've
Verdi,
completely
you know.
massacred that, of course.
There's like 8 Verdi transcriptions, and it's interesting that you would put this on in the opening. It's rather a bold stroke. It's quite effective as I hear it in
the
my
tolling
mind.
bells. Yeah.
Let's listen to Marthanne Verbit in the Miserere from Il Trovatore by Verdi in Liszt's transcriptions, played by you, Marthanne Verbit. The Miserere from Il Trovatore in the transcription by Liszt, marvelously played by Marthanne Verbit with the proper melodrama. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the Liszt contribution on our program today, and that was a live performance from an 81 Merkin Hall. Mm-hmm. Is it harder to play in New York? I know you've played all over the world, London and the Boston Pops, and certainly your career in Georgia alone would have prepared you for anything. But New York is hard, isn't it?
I like playing in New York. I think I'll probably play here again in '86, certainly by '87 again. I think all of us pianists like the challenge that New York presents. I like it not just because the stage is good, you're in total control of what piano you choose, or you at least can be, but also it gives an opportunity to shape a program that's interesting and unusual. I can't take a program such as the one you're looking at really on the road.
Yes.
I have to add a very large Chopin group to my touring. I don't mean that to sound as if it's a trial. It's just that I feel that there's so much going on in New York City when I come to play. It is my duty to play something that's interesting and unusual, that, once again, I mean, you said serving the music. I think that serves a purpose, to have people come in and bring things that they've researched or that they find interesting that is not played all the time.
It's so important. Just look at after intermission in this Merkin Hall. You played the concert transcription of the Klavierstück on Opus 11, number 2 of Schoenberg. Then you played the Ragtime for 11 instruments, piano version by the composer of Stravinsky. Then pieces by Casella, and then the Scriabin Fifth is the only piece that was even vaguely known, and the Ornstein Fourth Sonata on the first half. I think this is really admirable because yes, in New York you have a very, very cultivated audience who know a lot of the piano literature. So
and who are interested in hearing something different. I love the Chopin G minor ballade as probably more than most people do.
I know.
But I don't understand the point of programming it again and again. Perhaps that's a wrong choice. What's being done to death now? It seems that things go in cycles. You were mentioning the Beethoven Moonlight Sonata is having a revival now.
Well, it deserves it. But, just because some pianist will play Kreisleriana because a teacher will say that's a great piece, or that Horowitz has recorded it, it has to be more than that. Kreisleriana can be a great ordeal for the public, 32, 33 minutes. And if you don't really have an affinity with Kreisleriana, please don't play it just because it's been the fashionable piece.
That's right.
Of the season.
I try to shape programs that have a point of view, and that I feel that that in the music I have something to bring to the music. That's what I'm sure we all feel that. That's not a revealing
Do you
thought.
feel that the New York audience is more sophisticated?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll be looking forward to hearing you in 1986, and I hope that the audience is filled with piano connoisseurs. Now, we're going to hear a work. Again, it's Marthanne Verbit doing something unusual, and it's going to be... Tell us about the Ravel that we're going to hear.
Now, this really is a fun piece. It's short, unlike some of the things that I play, which tend to be long. This is about a 5-minute piano transcription by a friend of Ravel. His name is Henri-Gilles Marchex. He was, I think, also a student of Ravel's. He was given permission by Ravel to make an arrangement of themes from Ravel's opera L'Enfant et les Sortilèges. And this is a piece that brings together 3 of the main themes from that opera. The Dragonfly's Waltz, the Valse Americaine, which is so beautiful. The Teapot and Teacups, a duet together based on Tea for Two. Ravel had just been to America and was fascinated by the music of Gershwin and the show tunes he heard. And there's a third theme which I've forgotten. I'll think of it when we hear it. But unlike the very beautiful opera score, in the piano transcription, all of these themes are compressed, and you hear one after the other. And of course, in the opera, they're separated by great distances and by some of the most beautiful orchestral writing that's ever been put on paper. And I might add, just to the pianist and the non-pianist who are listening, that in a work like this, it's nice to try to make it sound like the orchestral score, but it's a lot of fun to try, but there's no way that the piano can equate those I just think that's one of the most marvelous scores in the 20th century, the Ravel.
And still very little
yes,
known.
Right.
So it's called Foxtrot.
It's called 5 o'clock Foxtrot.
Yeah.
And you'll hear right at the beginning the 5 o'clock striking. And the music really speaks for itself. It's a very difficult piece. It's for the pianist. It's written on 3 staves. To my knowledge, no one else has performed it. And I hope to record it very soon.
Well, here's a WNCN first, Marthanne Verbit in the Foxtrot by Ravel. Transcribed by?
Transcribed by Gilles Marchex. It's a hyphenated name, Gil-Marchex.
Yes.
Pardon my French.
I have seen that name. Here we go. wonderful piece called 5 O'Clock Foxtrot by Ravel in the hands of Marthanne Verbit. This is David Dubal, and we have been sampling the vast repertoire of Marthanne Verbit, who is in New York playing various performances. Yesterday I heard her in Josephine Moore's Crystal Stairs. But you've done performances also of sonatinas by John Dierks, who you studied with in Virginia, and in fact, one of the sonatinas is a homage to you in a way, because the second sonatina, I think it is, or third, whatever, utilizes the themes of the Scriabin sonatas, which you play. Also, we must say, because you wanted to give credit to Donald Garvelman, who is the publisher of Music Treasures in New York, he was the one who made it possible for you to get the score of the Ravel, which is not easy to get.
That's right. It was published by Dorin.
Yeah.
So
we're going to talk about a composer that is dear to you and who you have championed. He's like 94 years old. He was born in Russia. His name is... No, we're not going to talk about him yet. We're going to talk about
save him.
Another one you have championed, and that is Cyril Scott. Tell me about Cyril.
My ears, Scott. He was born in 1879 and lived a long time until 1970. He wrote a lot of books for which he was famous, many of them not about music, but about homeopathy. How do you say that?
I don't know.
You say it first.
I can't do it.
You say it, then I'll say it.
You just pick the actual word.
Homeopathy.
Yeah. And it's very good.
All right.
And
everyone knows what we mean.
Everything from reincarnation to...
That's right.
Yeah.
I think he wrote at one point that in a previous life he hinted that he had been Mozart. That, I think, was in his last book, his autobiography called Bone of Contention. I came across him when I was in college. I borrowed permanently from the library his little book called Music and Its Secret Influences Throughout the Ages, which has a large section on Scriabin.
Yes.
And it's a wonderful book. Then I played, a few years later, a Scriabin recital in New York, all Scriabin, and a lot of people came to that recital out of curiosity, certainly not because they knew my name, but they came for the best reasons, to hear the music. And someone taped it on the sly and sent it to Robin Comagere in California, who is Genesis Records. And a few months later, without my doing anything, he called me one evening. He's a free spirit, isn't he?
Yes.
And out of the blue, he called me and he said, "Would you like to make an album of Cyril Scott?" And I tried to keep myself from saying Cyril who, but I did at least have a passing acquaintance with Lotus Land.
Lotus Land, his most famous piece. And you know what? On that Genesis record, filled with Cyril Scott, including his very important piano sonata, which was championed earlier in the century by Percy Grainger, which you have played, and which you know has all his characteristics of all the different bar lines changing meter every minute. It's hard to read that stuff. Well, you did a wonderful job, but we have only time for his most famous pieces, right? Which are they?
The Danse Nègre and Lotus Land, for piano, though.
Yes. Let's hear the actual original versions, right?
Yes.
Of these pieces by Cyril Scott in the hands of Marthanne Verbit. Dance Negra of Cyril Scott, along with his famous Lotus Land, in the hands of my guest, Marthanne Verbit. Marthanne, we have almost no time for your main composer, Ornstein. We'll have to do a program on him.
Oh, well, he's 94 now, still living and composing, American, obviously. I think people know about Ornstein now.
Well, let's hope they do. Let's hear at least the 26-minute Passion.
26 seconds.
26 seconds, of course.
Minutes, oh God.
Forgive me. Let's hear Marthanne Verbit. You have just heard Passion by Leo Ornstein, played on a Genesis release by Marthanne Verbit. Marthanne, it's been wonderful, wonderful talking to you.
I've enjoyed it, too, talking to you.
Well, we'll be doing more programs together, and we'll get more Ornstein in. This is David Dubal. Thank you for listening.